Hello, everyone. My name is Frank DeLuzio, and welcome to Frank's Fiction, the book review podcast. This is part one of this mini series that I'm trying out. I originally was going to do a full fledged podcast and just release episodes every week or bi weekly, but I want to see what you guys think about it. So, for everyone that's listening, if you can let me know on my Instagram or my TikTok, preferably maybe the Instagram, I tend to check the messages more on that platform. Both of my handles for that is Franks, FRANKS underscore fiction, FICTION. So it's Franks underscore fiction. If you want to let me know what you think of this show, make sure to follow me on those platforms too. You'll get updates on the show. Maybe I can do little snippet episodes where I also do updates. So make sure to also be following the podcast on Spotify or on Apple Podcast or whatever streaming service that this podcast is on or that you're listening on. So I wanted to start these episodes with a little bit of like a life update, and then we could get into the book review. So this past week, I've been dating someone for a little over 4 months. He's amazing. I love him very much. And we decided to kind of do a little bit of a trial run when it came to like just staying together for a week. I feel like before doing the like moving in with your partner, before marrying them, committing to them, whatever that you want to identify the relationship, I think it's important to do things like these trial runs of staying together, of going on vacation together, testing both of you in certain difficult situations to see how both of you handle things together. And we did a little bit of a trial run, and it didn't just go very great, it went way above my expectations. Not that I was expecting much from it. Like I didn't want to go in there with a bunch of expectations, but it went really well. There was a lot of strong communication. We cooked a couple times together for the first time, and that was really nice. I'm personally not the best cook, so it was nice to have that person next to you for that. I think overall, this whole thing with staying with my boyfriend it reminded me of a lesson that actually kind of pertains. It could relate to this story a little bit itself with our main character, Nora. But I guess overall, what I want to remind people out there, because I see a lot of statuses or I see TikTok video story times, or there's a lot of different things I see and hear of people. It's challenging for them to move on from a significant other that they're no longer with or that they had feelings for and they didn't have feelings back. So I kind of want to just remind those people or any of you that are listening that can relate to this, because I know I sure can, is that sometimes we feel like it doesn't get better or that we missed out on like our ultimate soulmate. And I just think there's many options out there, and I think there could be multiple soulmates. And I believe that sometimes we think we're not going to get a better connection or better compatibility, better chemistry, better just understanding of one another, but sometimes you really can get an even better connection. And that's happened to me a couple of times, and my current situation that I'm in, it's once again happening, and I'm really thankful for that. It's okay to miss those people. It's okay to feel the emotions, to go through the grieving process, but then to also keep moving forward and looking forward to bigger and better things. It's just unfortunate when I see people, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, even 1 year, where someone is really going through it. They're spending a lot of time missing that certain person, or wishing that that person was back in their lives, or wishing that, oh, if this person just did this, or if they just fought the way that I fought for it, like things could be great, or if they were just this type of person that I wanted them to be. And it's just a lot of thoughts that personally I don't think are the most helpful. I think sometimes, unfortunately, things just fizzle out, or it's just a different season with that specific person. It just wasn't meant to be. And I know when you're in the trenches of it, it's very difficult. I get it. Trust me. It has felt unbearable at times in my life. I have felt the anxiety. I have felt the extreme depression. It really sucks when you feel both of them very strongly at the same time. It almost feels paralyzing in a way. I understand that, and I think that's also why therapy personally has helped me a lot, not stay in those places, have different thought processes. I think there's a lot of helpful people. I've mostly seen them on TikTok, but there's various therapists and life coaches or just other types of people that even just people like you and me who might just want to share our story. There are a lot of different resources out there that can be really helpful. Sometimes you just hear that one right piece of information and it provides so much clarity. So I don't want people to feel trapped. I don't want people to feel that constant longing over that person. I want everyone to find their people, find their person, be happy in whatever connection that they want with another person or with people. And I truly do wish the best for everyone out there. But yes, this past week for me was good. And I just want to hold on to that for a moment because sometimes we don't celebrate those good moments long enough. Sometimes we just think, oh, that was a good moment, moving on now. And then some of the negative events, it's at least for me, it's much easier to hold on to that for a long period of time. So I want to actually feel this. I want to actually be happy with this because some happy moments don't last forever, or that as we feel happy moments, then a wave comes in and it crashes into us, knocks us down off of our feet for a second, and then sometimes it's a process to get back up and to start swimming again. But anyway, this is not a self-help podcast. This is a book review podcast, and that's what most of you were looking for. So without further ado, let's get to the episode. And once again, to anyone that's listening, thank you so much for listening and checking this out. Enjoy. All right, everyone. So before we get into today's book review, I want to go over a little bit the format that's going to happen in the episode. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of a spoiler-free review, talk about what the book is about, give some light details to what I think about it. Then there's going to be a little transition noise. And before that transition noise, if you haven't read the book yet and you want to, I recommend that you pause the episode, go read the book, then come back to the episode, and then listen to all the spoilers that are going to be revealed later on. If you're not planning on reading the book and you don't really care about hearing those spoilers, then definitely, be more than welcome to stay on it. That transition noise is going to happen. Then it's going to be a spoiler filled review where I really get more into detail about things. Going to go over a couple book club questions. There weren't a lot for this book that really stuck out to me. Then I'll share my star rating. If you don't follow me on Instagram or on Goodreads, then you won't know about the star rating until the end. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, that is going to be at Franks_fiction. That is FRANKS_FICTION. So, what book are we doing today? Well, it's the title of the episode. It's In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. Now, Ruth Ware, that name might be a little familiar to you. She has published quite a good amount of books, and I didn't realize this was the very first book that she published, or at least one of the first ones, because there's The Woman in Cabin 10, I think was maybe the same year or next year. That's also one that she published early on. I wasn't aware of that. I just wanted to read a Ruth Ware book. This was the very first book that I ever read of hers, and I didn't realize there were mixed reviews on it. You know, I think it's tough to publish your first book. I mean, I can share something personally about myself. I have published various poetry pieces, but I haven't fully completed an entire book yet. And I think part of that is because I'm scared. I'm scared that if people don't like this first book, that they might not read anything else. And the first book, it's not going to be this perfect masterpiece all the time. Some people really hit it off, but I guess at the end of the day, you can't let fear run your life on this. And you just have to do the best that you can with the book. And as time goes on and the more that you develop your skills, I mean, your books are only going to get better and better. And that's what I hear about Ruth Ware, that some of her later books are definitely a lot better than what they thought of this one. So another thing that I thought was kind of weird with this book was that I could not find the blurb. I feel like besides the cover of a book, the blurb is really important. Maybe this is just the only copy that does it like this, and maybe other copies of the book, they have the blurb, but it's a paperback, so the blurb wasn't on the inside like it would be for a hardcover. And it wasn't on the back. It's just a bunch of those reviews that most of us don't care about from people that we don't really know or care about. So I'm like, what is this book about? So I had to go on Goodreads, and this is what the blurb says. What should be, let me do this in a more ominous voice. What should be a cozy and fun filled weekend deep in the English countryside takes a sinister turn in Ruth Ware's. So, sorry, I lost breath. Let me start over. What should be a cozy and fun filled weekend deep in the English countryside takes a sinister turn in Ruth Ware's suspenseful, compulsive, and darkly twisted psychological thriller. Sometimes the only thing to fear, is yourself. When reclusive writer Lenora is invited to the English countryside for a weekend getaway, she reluctantly agrees to make the trip. But as the first night falls, revelations unfold among friends old and new. An unnerving memory shatters Lenora's reserve, and a haunting realization creeps in. The party is not alone in the woods. I hope you enjoyed that little rendition of reading the blurb. I had way too much fun doing that. So, yes, this story takes place at what is called a hen party. I was really disappointed that this party didn't involve chickens and the chickens are laying eggs. I would love to attend a party where I brought my own chicken, well, my own hen, and just, got with other ladies and guys and non binaries and whoever's there to, just let our chickens lay eggs and just talk and dish and maybe not cook any egg dishes. I don't know if that's insensitive to the party. But anyway, this party does not exist that I know of. A hen party is similar to a bachelorette party in the UK. So in the United States, we have bachelorette parties. That's what we call them. Essentially, it's when a bunch of women get together before the bride gets married, and men have a similar, well, maybe not similar, but men have a bachelor party of their own accord. But yes, so the characters that are involved in this hen party, we have Nora, who is Lenora, but she goes by Nora. She has other nicknames like Lee and Leo, but we can get into those later. We're going to go with Nora. So we have Nora, we have Claire. Claire is the bride that's going to get married. We have Flo, which instantly made me think of Finding Nemo. I think isn't one of the fish in the first movie? Isn't her name Flo, like that blue one? And yeah, I don't know. We have Melanie, we have Nina, and we have Tom. And I want to say that's all the guests that attend the hen party. So Nora is an author, she's a writer. She goes under a different name. I'm not going to lie, I can't remember that name. But it is a pen name. I don't think it's that important at the end of the day. She's a writer and she gets this email from Claire. Now Claire was her best friend from at least 10 years ago. So like it was like a high school best friend, and most of us don't really keep in contact with them anymore, or like still have them as best friends. Some of us do, and hey, that's awesome if you do. But yeah, Claire invites Nora and they haven't talked in all this time. So I try to put myself in this position. I want all of you to ask yourselves that if you got an invitation from your ex best friend of many years, many moons ago, would you attend? I don't think I would. I just, besides like any type of social anxiety getting in the way, personally, I would have said no and the book would have ended. Maybe it should have. But I did find it a little peculiar that she agreed to go. I don't even remember why she said yes. I think she was even doubting it and was thinking, why am I doing this? Why? Yeah, exactly. Like, Nora, why are you doing this? And I just think about everything that happened, which I'll get into later. And I just think about, oh my God, if she didn't go, like, would any of that other stuff happen? And maybe it would have, but she wouldn't have been involved. It's a mess for sure. I want to also recognize there is a man named James that becomes important in this story. And all I can really say about that is James is Nora's ex-boyfriend from around the same time period. So at least 10 years ago. And she still thinks about him. And she hasn't really had a relationship since him. And that's something to just keep in mind. When it came to entertainment, Honestly, it's one of those books that feels like a slow burn, or at least for me it did, because I feel like a lot of thrillers, they get right into something. They get right into some sort of mystery. The mystery at the beginning for me in this book, it felt more like a slow burn. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but for a thriller, sometimes I think you have to be careful with that because I was reading chapter by chapter at the beginning and I didn't mind stopping after. Really good thrillers, one goal I feel like with a really good thriller is that you do not want to put that fucking book down. Like, no matter what, you could be starving, you could need a shower, your kid could be crying in the background, and you're just thinking, I really want to finish this damn chapter. But no, seriously, side note, take care of your kids, take care of yourself, and don't and don't let books take over your life. But you want it to be so good that it's almost impossible to put the book down. One other thing to note about this book is it switches between the past, and the past being everything that's going on at this hen party for I think it lasts a few nights. And then it jumps back to the present where Nora's in the hospital and she doesn't know why and she can't remember. I will point out, I think something good about this book was it's part of the writing style, the point of view. So we have the point of view of Nora, and I think Ruth Ware did a really great job at making us feel like we're in an amnesia state ourselves and wondering, yeah, what the hell happened here? Like, I don't know what's going on. And our narrator isn't even the most reliable because she doesn't even know what's going on all the time. So I thought there was a good job there. I want to say more, but I feel like the rest would just be spoilers at this point. And for people that want to read it, I want to give that opportunity to all of you to do that. So, with further ado, is that the statement? Is that the phrase? Without further ado, not with further ado. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. We are going to do a little transition break, and then we're going to get into the big, juicy details of this book. We'll be right back. Today's episode is sponsored by Zencaster. So, a few years ago, I started a podcast, and one of my podcasting friends told me they record through Zencaster. I guest starred on his show. It was super easy to join through the invite link. I just plugged in my microphone and we recorded. When I listened to the episode, the sound quality was chef's kiss. I knew going forward I had to use Zencaster to record episodes for my own show. It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. If you have thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all in one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencaster.com/pricing and use my code FranksFiction, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And welcome back. So now we're going to get into the spoiler filled review. And there's a lot of things. So I kind of call this like the gossip part of the episode where we just kind of do a little goss. We do a little talking about this book and just some things that I felt and anything that any of you listeners are feeling. Definitely comment on the episode or comment in the social media posts or even message me. You could even message me at my email, which is franksfiction@yahoo.com, or you can message me on Instagram, which was the Franks_fiction, or wherever you're connected to me. I have plenty of social medias that I know you guys will keep in touch. But the first thing that I want to say about this book is that Claire is a shit friend. I'm sorry, like she's really toxic. She's just shitty. And I think I forgot to mention in the spoiler free part is that people are dying. People are dying, Kim. No, but a little Kardashian reference. But people are getting hurt or dying in this book. and they're kind of wondering like who the hell is it? And I guess I'm just going to say it at this point. They try to make you think it could be anyone in the group because it has to be someone in the group essentially, and it's Claire, which was not shocking at all. I was thinking to myself as I was reading, it can't be this straightforward, right? She's such an obvious bitch and horrible person. Of course it's her. Like, she has the motive, everything. So, one thing that I couldn't say in the free version that I can say in this filled part is that Claire, and to me, this was the immediate red flag, if nothing else was that Claire is marrying James, and James is Nora's ex-boyfriend, and Claire knew about their feelings and them being together, and she was probably butthurt and wanted to get with James afterwards, and there was a motive there, and Claire knew that Nora didn't know, knew that they were together and that they had a serious relationship, and then she goes and invites her to the hen party and potentially the wedding as well. Like, what the fuck? No, like, that's so sus. It's very sus. Claire, I could tell there's a couple past memories of Claire lying and all this, and I guess what they wanna hint at is acting. Because one thing I didn't mention was I did say Nora is a writer, but Claire, James, and Nora, they were also actors. Maybe Tom as well, or maybe it was just Tom's husband was involved in acting. I can't 100% remember, but those three main characters were actors, and Claire had always been the lead, and then she got sick. So then Nora was the understudy of Claire, and she was able to act with James in a play. I know I read the book years ago. Yes, it is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. It also was a movie, and I guess they were doing a play on it. I don't know if that actually was a Broadway thing, but it was a school play in high school for them in this narrative. But yeah, it was just obvious that she sucked. And the ending just wasn't really surprising with that, which I'm going to try my best to go in some sort of order, even though I literally just skipped to the end right there, or at least part of the end. It's not the full end, but I can definitely talk about how dissatisfying the end was in a little bit. But yeah, so when Nora and James, the reason they broke up, and oh my god, it was driving me insane like the whole time. Characters, I'm pretty sure Nina was one, and I think almost all of them would ask, except for Claire, which was also a red flag there. They were, asking her, like, oh, why did you and James break up? We heard rumors that, like, he gave you chlamydia or something, or like he cheated on you. And, Nora would be like, no, it wasn't any of that. No. And the whole time you're like, oh my God, like, just say it. Like, what the hell? So then we finally find out towards the end why they broke up, or why Nora thinks they broke up. And it was that Nora got pregnant, and James had sent her a text message saying, yeah, I don't think this is going to work. And that was it. And they never talked again. And Nora got an abortion. And what's really fucked up is she got the abortion with Claire. And then and why I say that's fucked up is James never sent that text message. Claire sent that text message. It's kind of hard for me to believe though that Nora and James, they supposedly had this really strong romance with each other, but they never tried to contact each other the entire 10 years, not once after that text message. I don't know. If it was me, I probably would have said something, especially if I was pregnant with your baby at one point, which I can't get pregnant, but neither here nor there. I even without a baby in my womb, I still would contact the man personally. I probably would have tried. I probably would have tried. There's social media. I mean, this wasn't, I don't think this takes place in like the 80s or anything, or before that. So it's like there was social medias to see what was the up and up. It's kind of hard for me to believe that they just never tried. And they don't really explain that. They're just like, yeah, we just never tried. Even Claire points out, you both didn't even try to talk to one another. I mean, talk about really easy manipulation scheme for Claire, I guess. So I want to go over some of the characters. There's not much that I can say about them, and that's why I figure let's go through them quick. So I want to kind of go through what happened with those characters I mentioned coming at the hen party. So I guess I'm going to start with Melanie, because for a while I was just like, why is Melanie here? why is she a character? Melanie is a character that actually leaves the party early. She, has a family with her kid and her husband, and she ends up leaving. Melanie's probably actually the smartest character in the entire book because I always feel like the one that dips out, it's like, you're smart. Like, obviously, this is a weird situation. Flo is, I forgot to say, like, what's all the relations to Claire and why she invited each one. So, Flo is Claire's current best friend through like college and everything. So essentially, right after Nora, Flo kind of became the new best friend for Claire. Oh man, I don't remember why Melanie and Claire knew each other. I actually can't remember. It's not even that important though, because Melanie's not really a crucial character because she leaves and we literally never hear from her again. There's never an update. I don't know if Melanie was supposed to be like maybe she was just supposed to be a warning character. Maybe it was supposed to show Nora what she should have done in the situation. Like she should have just stood up for herself. And maybe in the past, she wasn't doing that a lot and just kind of going along with the flow like she does in this novel at points. So maybe it was like a lesson of, don't always go with the crowd. And like, if you got to take care of something, you got to take care of something. And she had to go back and, Melanie had to go back and she had to take care of her kid. And because Melanie did that, I don't think she was affected negatively in any way. Like there were certain creepy things that were happening before Melanie left. And yeah, she made a really smart decision. So I did mention Flo. So I might as well just go into Flo next. Flo felt like the character they wanted you to think was gonna be the murderer, like which made me instantly think she's not because I've read enough thrillers to know it's never the obvious choice. Well, sort of. I mean, because Claire was the first obvious choice, but then I figured they were making Flo creepy. So maybe it was a little bit of like that. Maybe they were trying to paint that Flo was trying to be like the next Claire or something. Like she was so obsessed with her, it seemed, or like that's how it came off. When I think in reality, it just was a lot of like low self esteem and maybe people pleasing and maybe like a little bit of like loss of identity and stuff. But unfortunately for Flo, so what happens with her is Flo's trying to plan the perfect hen party for Claire, and things are going not as perfectly planned, which is pissing her off and making her really irate and upset. They do, like, for example, they do a seance, and Nina and Tom are messing with the seance, and they're pretending to be the spirit and spelling out funny things. And Claire's really losing her patience. And I forgot to also mention the house that they're staying in is Flo's aunt's house. So there ends up being this point in the story where Flo brings up her aunt has a gun at the house, but it's okay because it's full of blanks. Well, there's an intruder, which is kind of hinted in the blurb of the story in the synopsis that there's an intruder. And what ends up happening with that is it's actually James. And Flo, well, all of them think that an intruder's breaking into the house. And as James is going up the stairs, Flo slash Nora, I think it's more so Flo, shoots him. And guess what? There weren't blanks in the gun, there was actual ammo in it. And James gets shot. They, kind of skip a little bit forward. They try to get him to the hospital. I want to say Claire is the one that's like driving and trying to go to the hospital. Long story short, James doesn't make it in time. He dies. Flo feels extremely guilty about everything that's happened, especially that she killed someone essentially, and she tries to take her own life. I don't think they ever really say if she's okay or not at the end. Like she's just in critical condition. And it's like, oh geez. So I feel like the lesson behind Flo is almost showing Nora, hey, if you continued to have been best friends with Claire and doing all those habits that you were doing before and letting Claire slide with a lot, that maybe you could have ended up in this state as well. Like maybe you would have really lost who you were as an adult and as a person. Because unfortunately for Flo, that's what happened. Tom isn't essentially an important character, I would say. Like, he doesn't really have many plot points. His husband works with James, so that there's like some sort of connection there. Tom's one of the people that kind of messes around with the seance thing. He tries to help get James to the hospital. Like, him and Nina play a big role in trying to assess the situation. And they're the two that also get interviewed by the cops while Nora and Claire are in the hospital, get into it later why Claire was in the hospital as well. But I just thought of something. Oh god, I feel so bad. This is how unimportant Tom is to me, is I literally just had a whole separate thought. So the book is called In a Dark, Dark Wood. And I remember like halfway through the book, I just started giggling because I realized the name, it's called In a Dark, Dark Wood. I immediately thought of the Fall Out Boy song, which it's called My Songs Know What You Did. And that part, in the dark, dark. And that's all I thought about because the book is called In a Dark, Dark. So that it just made me giggle, and that's how boring the story was to me at times, is I just was thinking about random things like Fall Out Boy songs. Whatever happened to Fall Out Boy, by the way? Like, are they still a thing? Are they still making music? Let me know because I have no idea what they're doing, and yet I randomly care about Patrick Stump. Is that his last name? Did I get that right? I know Pete Wentz. I wonder what Pete Wentz is up to. And Patrick, is it really Stump? It is. It is. That's respectable. I love trees, so I really respect that last name. Oh, I'm actually looking at him. He lost some weight. I wish I could. But no, I mean, I mean, and the other ones, I care about the band as a whole. Like, I hope they're doing okay, and I hope they keep making music because I know Panic at the Disco, unfortunately, didn't really have the same route. I feel like Panic at the Disco is essentially just Brendan Urie singing, and then there's a band there. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't even know if any of the original members are still there anymore. But anyway, back to the book. So we have Nina, and I mean, before I even get into Nina, I think my problem is that, at least with the characters, is that it was it was hard to connect to any of them. It was hard to really care about them. I mean, there's so much I probably don't even remember about these characters because I'm reading and I'm like, who gives a fuck at the end of the day? Like, the story wasn't really making me care about the characters enough. And I feel like that's really important, is you want to be rooting for someone, and I was never rooting for Nora or for anyone. I just was like, oh, that happened. But Nora has a partner named Jess. Jess isn't really in the book. Nina tries to talk to her a couple of times. That's essentially it. Nina kind of came off, I guess her and Tom kind of came off as like these dickish characters, but Nina definitely towards the beginning, I don't know why they made such a character switch on her where I don't know, I was confused by her. Like, she kind of was bitchy at the beginning to like Nora and to everyone and just didn't even want to be there, which it's like, girl, why did you come? Then if you're acting like this, like, I don't know. She just always seemed bitchy, and then randomly was just really cool with Nora again. And I want to say Nina was also friends with Nora back then, along with Claire. Like, I think they were kind of a group of friends at one point. But yeah, she was bitchy. Then she randomly was cool with Nora, and then just was like extremely helpful. What I forgot to disclose is she's a doctor, which is very convenient, but yet also like how everything went down, it's almost like it didn't even matter because he still didn't make it. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, she's in the medical field, and honestly, I don't remember much more. She just always came off as like a bitchy character, and then I remember halfway through, I'm like, oh, she's just nice, and she's like really helpful all of a sudden, and I couldn't remember why or when the transition happened exactly. Like, I don't remember any specific event that made her go, oh yeah, like, let me turn this around. James, they don't really tell much about James. I mean, James, I guess, was a successful actor who was with Nora, who was with Claire. An interesting thing that I found was that I guess James didn't want to marry Claire anymore. Like, James sort of pulled one of those, oh, like, let's tell each other the truth before we get married. I think James cheated on Claire or something, like, something had happened and Claire was forgiving of him, and then Claire told him her truth about certain things or about a certain event, and James was just like, "Ah, nah, I don't wanna marry you," which then essentially led Claire to doing this whole setup of, "Oh, like, I'm going to invite James over and then we're gonna kill him." Because this, spoiler alert, Claire, there were blanks in the gun. Claire switched the blanks out and put real bullets from an earlier event. They went clay pigeon shooting. I never heard of that in my life. I don't know if that's just like a shooting range, but they had done that activity before the seance. Claire must have took bullets from there and put them in the gun. I don't know how anyone didn't catch her doing this, but neither here nor there. Like, she did that and had them shoot James and think he was an intruder. What makes it worse is that Claire had texted James from Nora's phone and making it sound like that Nora wanted to see him again and James came because of that, which to me that was weird too because they hadn't talked for so long and it just he didn't need much convincing. So I don't know if that was supposed to show that they really loved each other, but then if they also really loved each other, why the hell didn't they talk before 10 years? Like, it just I don't know. And you know what? I'm going to skip ahead to one of the book club questions because, yeah, I definitely want to talk about this. And it's describing Nora's relationship with James and essentially asking if we believe the intensity of the love there and the relationship after all those years of not talking. Because towards the end, they were really starting to have Nora show things like, "Oh, I absolutely love James. I've always loved him. I never stopped loving him." And just like this deep craving and deep love for him, even though they hadn't connected for so long and they had sort of this short relationship in high school. I have to kind of look at a personal example in my own life because I have an ex who was a long-term relationship of a year and a half, and I wanna say we actually broke up. It's been 10 yeah, 10 years ago, actually. It's going on to 11 soon, but I try to think about if I still feel that same level of intensity of love, and no. Like, I definitely hope he's doing well and he's okay, and I wouldn't wish any harm on him, but the level of love that Nora had for James after all that time was a little concerning. I don't remember the relationship being long, but also she hadn't been giving other guys a chance. I don't know if that has a factor. I don't know if she was, like, looking this man up all the time at home. They don't give us those details, but also, if you're so into him and you're looking up the details, why don't you message him? Like, I just that part really bothers me with this because it could have avoided so much with just a simple conversation. Like, James didn't have to die, not like this. But I'm gonna skip ahead to the end where essentially it's revealed that, like, the Claire reveal of the murder. So essentially, Nora is set up as a suspect because of those text messages on her phone that Claire actually did. But of course, the police don't know that. A very, very, very unbelievable scene happens where Nora sneaks out of the hospital. Now, I'm sorry, but first of all, even if she wasn't a suspect in a murder, she, like, she wouldn't have got out of there. Like, hospitals are very staffed in the way, and what I mean by that is there are nurses everywhere and there's or some sort of personnel, like someone would have seen her walk out of that hospital, and she might have even been on the second floor. I think she took an elevator, so it's even worse. Like, how was no one in the elevator? How did no one see her, like, limping? I don't even think she's running. I don't understand because there was a watch. Like, they had mentioned as she was sneaking out, they were like, "Oh, a patient got out and she's a suspect of a murder." Like, how do you not have a guard outside the door? Like, what? Like, it almost would have been more believable if she drugged the guard behind the door because they mentioned there was someone standing outside the door and they're just magically not now. Like, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. But there's also something they always bring up, the fact that Nora's a runner. I don't know. I guess, like, that played a part into how she escaped too and how she was able to go all the way back to this house. She had a little bit of money, I think like 20 bucks. She goes and takes a taxi, and the taxi brings her all the way to this place, to the house where everything happened. It's a crime scene, it's under investigation, so it's all taped up. And essentially, she's in there, and it just so happens that Claire arrives at the same time, like, not even a minute later. Like, she just shows up at the house and is like, "Yep, it's me," and has to do like one of those, like, little, or I shouldn't even say instant confessions because she tries denying it at first, but Nora's like, "Bitch, I know what you did. Like, I added everything up." And Claire's essentially trying to gaslight her and I guess kind of act like she's not a part of it, but then she just is like, "Yeah, I did it. Do you want this cup? Do you want a cup of coffee or tea?" It was like coffee or tea, and this dumb bitch, Nora, drinks it. You drink the coffee or the tea or the suspicious liquid from someone that just said they murdered their fucking fiance? Are you out of your mind? Like, that is that's rule number 1. Don't accept liquids from strangers, especially ones that say they're murders. I don't care if she was your best friend from the past. She just confessed to murder. And not only did she murder her fiance, but supposedly someone that's the love of your life. What? I couldn't. So of course there was something in the liquid. That's what I'm getting at with this. Like, of course she just got drugged now, and she already was fucked up. And yeah, Claire was so also I this makes me hard to believe it too, because you might be wondering like what happened with Claire before. I kind of skipped a step. So when they were trying to get James to the hospital, Claire was the driver, and I think she confesses that she wasn't going to bring James to the hospital. She was going to let him bleed out, essentially, because Nina did her best to kind of bandage him up. But Nora runs up, like catches up somehow. She's just such a great runner. She catches up to the car that stormed off. I don't know how. But yeah, unless maybe Claire was pulled over. I don't even remember. But somehow Nora gets in the car. Her and Claire are fighting. And it was hard for Nora to remember all the details with that. But essentially, Nora and Claire end up crashing the car into a tree, and that's what ended both of them up in the hospital. And Claire, this whole time, they're like, yeah, she's in a coma. Like, that's it. So apparently, she wasn't really in a coma, which she must be like the actress of a fucking lifetime to pretend she was in a coma with medical professionals. But like I said, I don't know if that's a plot hole as well. And then it also doesn't make sense how the hell she also escaped out of the hospital. But hey, Nora did it. So I guess Claire can too. But I, I don't like, where did she get money and resources? And and after they already had a security call on Nora escaping and trying to find where she went, how the hell, like, were they really not on lockdown? Like, how the hell did Claire just slip out the next minute after? I don't know. That's never explained. So what happens at the end is they kind of, and this is what I just thought was awful for an ending, because you invest yourselves in books. Books aren't really the shortest pieces of content. So you're reading hundreds and hundreds of pages of a story. And I'm like, okay, like here's the big fight off, between the two. So they like kind of fight, but they kind of can't, because Nora's all fucked up on drugs and Claire's just fucked up from the accident. So it almost makes me feel like it was one of those like funny fights of like almost like a silly slap fight type of thing. And then Nora runs off. And like I said, she's under this influence of whatever drug this is. And she's already messed up from that. I don't know how she's getting far after that, between her injuries and this suspicious stuff that was put in her drink. I don't understand how she's getting far. And then on top of it, Claire, I guess, gets in her car, which yeah, wait a second. I didn't even think about that. How the hell did she escape the hospital, but also get access to her car again when they thought she was in a coma? I don't know. I, why was her, wait a second. Wait a damn minute. Because she had gotten in a car accident. Like, wouldn't the car have been totaled, or it would have been like, why would it have been at the hospital? I don't know. I Wow, I don't know. Is that a plot hole right there? I don't know. There's so much. I have so many more questions than answers now. I didn't even think about that until just now. But she gets in her car that was already crashed, so that's fucked up, and Claire's fucked up. And essentially the ending scene is just Claire trying to chase her, and she crashes. And the police officer that had been interviewing Nora and everyone just so happens to be showing up back at this house, and she just automatically believes Nora is innocent, even though she was a suspect. Like, Nora just cries to the detective, which I don't remember her name, and is like, and like hugs her or whatever. And the police officer just believes her, which I'm shocked. I thought she was gonna just really think Nora was guilty, because I don't know, she was a suspect to a crime and she just escaped. But I guess they had like found certain things on Claire. They don't really explain much about that though. And you don't even know if Claire ends up in jail or goes to court or whatever, because the book just essentially ends. Like, it doesn't the ending is just, yeah, Claire's in trouble and Nora, you're off the hook, but James is dead and Flo might die. We don't know. And because that's left open unended. Like I said, Melanie, we don't know where the hell she went. She didn't even visit anyone during this whole time. And Nina and Tom are just like, yeah, sorry, you know, yeah. And I guess Nina tries to be a good friend to Nora somehow, but that's essentially the ending there. And there was a character introduced very towards the end who was his name is Matt, which was going to be James' best man at the wedding, and he's the one that kind of reveals that Claire and James are having some issues, like hinting at this whole thing about James not wanting to get married. And they also kind of set Matt up as a love interest for Nora, but then they don't really play on that. So yeah, I don't know. And this book, it keeps saying it all over the book, and I find this very interesting. It says soon to be a major motion picture, and it says it on the back of the book. It says it on the inside. It says it everywhere. I looked up this book and the potential movie, and I don't think the movie ever came out. There's nothing. This book was published in 2016. I don't see anything about it nowhere. So I don't think they ever made the movie. I guess Reese Witherspoon, she bought the rights, but that was it. I don't think they ever made a movie. And I could kind of see why they wouldn't, because in my opinion, that ending was really disappointing. And a lot of the stuff just seemed a little too straightforward. The only thing that I thought, well, not the only thing in the book, but one part that I thought was done well that actually caught me a little off guard, it was a hint that Claire was the one texting, was that I forgot to mention Claire throughout this whole novel. Nora says, like, I go by Nora. Her full name is Lenora, but the whole time Claire is calling her Lee because that was her nickname for her. And I know she's doing it on purpose. Like, I think that was the whole point. Like, she almost like she doesn't care that Nora has a preference. She's going to call her Lee no matter what. And James, I guess, would call her Leo. That was like the only person that called her Leo. So the James text message, Nora realizes, oh my God, it said Lee in there, which is something that only Claire calls her. It's not like James only called her Leo. And the text message said something like, Lee, I'm sorry, I don't think things are going to work out. So I thought that was done well because I didn't catch that little hint there of like, oh, yeah, James wasn't the one texting. Because I thought James maybe did text her. I just didn't care though either. Like that's the problem. There's just a lot of the story I didn't really seem to care about at the end of the day. So how I do star ratings for the books, I break it up into 5 different stars essentially. So I give a star, and this is for a typical rating, not for this one specifically. I judge books on entertainment, on characters, on plot, on writing style, and on the finished product. And the finished product is more so like if it's edited well, and it's not just the cover or anything, but I like a book that's edited well. Independent authors and like self-published authors, I'm a little more lenient on editing because I can understand how difficult editing can be for them that aren't part of a big publishing company. I am a freelance editor myself, so I can understand it's difficult to, especially like if you didn't end up hiring an editor and you edited it yourself. Editing is a shit ton of work. If there's a little thing here and there, I don't mind it. But I mean, if every single page has an editing error, well, that's sort of a problem. But for this book, entertainment, I gave a half star. Because like I said, the whole first part of the book, I really could just give a damn. It was slow. And for a thriller, I feel like slow is just not good. The last 100 pages, I really was rushing it. And it wasn't only because I wanted to finish the book. I actually was starting to get hooked in the sense of like, I just wanted to know what the hell was going on because it was taking them so long to reveal anything. The whole time we were just in this like limbo and mystery of what the hell's going on. The characters, I couldn't give a star because I tried to connect with them and a lot of them just came off as lackluster and a little bit unrealistic. I thought obviously some of them made some of the most idiotic choices ever. Like Nora, Nora seems like a nice woman, but I mean, by going to this party and some of her actions at the party and things that she did after, I mean, taking that cup from Claire, like that was such an idiotic choice. Like there's just things she did, but I guess, maybe that was supposed to just build up the plot and the conflict, but girl, like smarten up a little bit. I didn't find many of the characters to be that redeemable either, which was just making it hard to get through the book. And then by that ending, like I said, I was just severely disappointed. The plot I gave a half star. There wasn't many scenes of this in the book, but there were a couple of James and Nora and kind of like them, like them acting in the play and stuff. I really wished that they had more James and Nora scenes. I think it would have helped to build on why Nora loved him so much and maybe vice versa. Like it would help the reader understand that more. And there was such a lack of those scenes that I couldn't really understand why Nora was like so head over heels over James for so many years later when they hadn't talked, or like when it's essentially when it seemed like he just dumped her after carrying his child. I guess I wanted to see more emotion. I wanted those details and those scenes to show like why she felt so hard for him, and to just show like why their connection was so strong. The writing style, like I mentioned before in the spoiler free part, I liked being kind of set in that amnesia state thing. I thought Ruth Ware did a great job at that. I thought after the book reached its climax, the sentence flow, I felt like weaved together pretty nicely. It made me as a reader want to find out what was going to happen next, like I said earlier. And then the finished product, most of the time, usually gets a star. There for me, I mean, the cover is beautiful of the book, at least the copy that I have. I want to say it's like all these roots of a tree, and it has this black and white, like scary vibe to it. I thought it was very fitting there. I think there was one editing mistake I caught in the book, and don't even ask me how I remember that, but I remember there being one, but I mean, that was it. And I'm not going to hold that against someone. I do find it weird though that they had promoted so much about this being a movie and then it just wasn't. I don't know why they'd put that on the book, but I don't know. So am I going to give Ruth Ware a chance again? Of course I am. I don't stop reading authors after one book unless it was like that god awful. I don't think this book was completely awful. I don't even think it was awful at the end of the day. I know I had a lot of critiques for it, and my star rating isn't the highest, which I'm going to get to in a second, but I own a couple of her books. I own The Woman in Cabin 10. I own The Turn of a Key. I think I also own One by One. So I think I'm going to read maybe two more of those three. And if I don't like those two either, then I'm sorry, Ruth Ware. You will not be an auto read for me. So Robin Harding, Alice Feeney, those two I immediately think of as auto reads for me. Like I'll essentially buy anything from them. Lisa Jewell, I finally read a book of hers, which that will be the next review that I'm going to get into. And Lisa Jewell is essentially, I have a feeling she's going to become an auto read for me as well. Ruth Ware, I'm still trying to feel out a little bit among some other authors I'll get into in the future. So the book for me, I give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, but I would round it up to 3. I try to have whole numbers with my ratings, so I had to think about if I was going to round it down to 2 or round it up to 3. And I don't think I can give it a solid 2, so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars just because I feel this way about books, and I'll put a disclaimer in the intro. Doesn't mean you shouldn't read it or mean that you would feel the exact same way that I would feel about the book. So I just want to give that disclaimer there that, yeah, you know what? If you want to read it, definitely go and read it, and definitely let me know what you think about it. So that is it for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow me on social media if you want to stay up to date on reviews and other news. Make sure you subscribe to the show. That really helps, especially this being a somewhat new show. Well, it's like new and it's not new because an episode came out last year. So you would think that the show is about a year old, but it's not because we're starting over. We're revamping the show. And if you have some friends who like reading, make sure to share the episode and share the podcast with them. It'd be really cool if more people could check the show out and you guys can talk about what you guys think about these books or about the show or whatever it is related to this. I hope all of you have a super special, awesome day. Happy reading and bye.